So today we're here to talk about the start to finish for seller transactions.
Okay,
And
wonderful, wonderful topics.
good. I'll let we'll chat for a minute here while everybody finishes logging in. Who here has something good to report for the week? Any good things happen? Nothing? You've all had crappy weeks? How about does anybody have any contracts under anything under contract right now? Has anybody closed a transaction? All
I'm
right, so we're
excited.
starting.
This is my
Oh,
first week here.
oh, this is your first week. Wow, you're then
Yeah.
good. You're gonna get trained right from the beginning.
And I'm
Um,
still fairly a new agent, so I haven't had any transactions either. It's just like,
okay,
nothing yet.
that's fine. So we're gonna talk about it.
Same,
So,
same here. I'm a new agent.
Yeah, likewise. I'm a new agent as well. My name is
oh,
Dan. I've just joined.
perfect.
This is my first any event, attending any event with
Oh,
Capital
wow.
Properties.
Okay. So you're brand new. Well, let
Yes.
me let me back up here and say, my name is Jamie D. Simone. I'm with the KWCP office in Fairfax. So I am licensed in Fairfax and DC. That's not to say that what I'm teaching today isn't relevant for all three jurisdictions, but if you want to ask me anything contract specific about Maryland, I am not your person. So you want to talk to your coach about anything contract specific. But what we're going to do is we're going to talk today about so you get a listing and you go under contract and you got to get it to close. And we want to make sure that when you get your first listing that you don't, or you aren't like, oh my God, what do I do now? So this class is not to discuss the contract specifics. So we're not going over the specifics of the listing agreement or specifics of the sales contract. We will touch on it, but we're talking more about the transaction itself, the contingencies and the things you have to do to get that property to close properly. So, okay. The one of the things that I say in all transactions that you do in real estate, you've probably heard from people saying that it's really important to find business, right? Finding business is the most important thing you're going to do because without finding business, you don't have any business to transact. Well, your second most important thing to do, if you ask me, is to set expectations. So that setting of expectations can be for buyers, can be for sellers, it can be for tenants, landlords, it can be for literally anybody you're working with, because the setting of the expectation and them understanding what the process is that they're going to be going through is going to bulletproof every single one of your transactions. Does anybody know currently, and I honestly don't know, I can't give you a specific answer, but do you have an idea of whether contracts are falling out more or less than they were a year ago? Does anybody have a guess?
No idea. We are new.
Okay, that's fine.
If
Just
I were
being
to
new
guess,
doesn't mean that you might not have an idea. Contracts are falling out more now. Buyers have a little bit more choice. They are taking longer to make decisions. And if anything goes wrong, they are now not going through with the contract. So they're utilizing the void options in the contract. A year ago, 2 years ago, definitely 5 years ago in 2020 during the boom, buyers were waiving all of their contingencies and they didn't have an option but to go under contract and close, or else they were losing their earnest money deposit. So when we're talking about, from start to finish, we want to talk about all the things that you need to do to set everything up properly. So, like I said, we're not talking about going to a listing appointment. We're kind of talking about once you get the signed listing documents, now what? So you got the signed listing documents, and has anybody, well, I'm not going to ask because I know nobody's done any transactions, so I'm not going to like try to corner anybody into anything. When you are taking a listing appointment and you are discussing what your value proposition is to your potential sellers, your clients, one of the things you're going to be doing is talking about what you're going to be doing to market that property. Can anybody throw out some, this is not something you need to be experienced to know. What are some of the things you're going to do to market a property?
Arrange open house.
Open house, that's a great one. What else?
Social media.
Social media? I mean, we're missing the very beginning things. What are the very first things you're going to do?
Contact our buyers.
Listing
Well-
MLS.
MLS, yep. What else?
You're gonna find the right pricing by doing comparative market analysis.
Well, you would have done that for the listing, yeah, to get the listing, yes. But yes. Thank you. Everybody was missing a major one,
Staging?
that big thing that goes in the yard.
Inform all your colleague agents.
Well, yep. You're gonna reach out to your
the signs so we put on the
Yeah, you're gonna put up a for sale sign. So the first thing you're gonna do is and then what else are you gonna do? You're gonna put up a for sale sign very first. Put up a for sale sign.
Get some
What else?
photographs.
I'm sorry, Paula.
Get some photographs.
Photographs. Yep. And even maybe right before that, what else are you gonna put on the house?
Staging?
Well, that's prepping. That might be prepping.
Making sure that it's staged properly so that it shows well.
Staging is good. You guys are being way advanced. There's two things you're going to put on the house as soon as you get the listing. You're going to put up the sign and you're going to do something else.
Coming soon.
A key?
Well, a rider, that's a sign rider. What's going to go on the door?
A key like
Yeah,
Oh, I
lockbox.
love that.
Thank you. Okay. Was it this was a quiz. Took you guys a while to get there, but that's all right. So the very first things you're going to do is you're going to put up a sign, you're going to put a lockbox on the door. You should have a lockbox with you. If you've not already purchased a lockbox, you should plan to. If you are nervous about spending $150 on a central lockbox, then you can go buy a combo box for now. They're like 25 or 30. But you don't want to show up at a listing, get a listing, and not have a lockbox.
Quick question.
Yes.
If the house is occupied, do you still put the lockbox?
Yes.
Okay.
So if the house is occupied, I mean, let's put it this way. It doesn't matter whether there's a lockbox on the house or not. People need to schedule an appointment to show it. So the next thing you're going to do is you're going to go back to your office with your handy dandy contract that's been signed, and you're going to put it into the MLS. Again, that's an hour-long class in and of itself. So I'm not going to go over how to enter a listing into the MLS. It's relatively intuitive. Some of it just walks you through the questions. But if you are unsure of things like what a property structure is, so in other words, is it a split level, a split foyer? Is it a bi-level? Is it a center hall colonial? Is it a contemporary home? Those are all different home styles. If you do not know what those are, then please ask somebody who does, because you don't want to be putting that information incorrectly in the MLS because people search on those things. You also want to know what kind of property it is, whether it's a fee simple property or a condo or a co-op. That's the three most common ones you'll find around here. So those are really important, but you're going to enter in all of the information into the MLS. You are going to, and then you may just let it sit there as a draft. Next thing you want to do is you want to make sure that you're scheduling your professional photography. And my advice, now we all do different business certain ways. But I'm going to give you a couple good reasons why you want to start off with doing things correctly. If you've never sold a house before, and now you get an opportunity to sell one, are you going to be able to use the example of that home to sell another home? Are you going to be able to say, hey, next potential seller, I sold this home. This is what happened, and this is how much we sold it for, right?
Yeah. Use
Okay.
that as like the template going forward, because if you
Right.
start off wrong, you'll develop a bad habit.
Great. Thank you. And not only that, you are not creating yourself any favors. So I will tell you right now that getting a listing is expensive. It costs you money. It costs you money that you have to pay out of pocket for things like professional photography. I recommend doing floor plans. I also recommend staging if it's a vacant home. Staging is expensive. Staging can be $4,000, $5,000, $6,000 depending on the size of the home. That is all stuff that, again, you can get into more detail with your specific coaches to find out what they recommend you do. But you want to be able to use that as a great example for your next property. And if your first property sale was done with photos that you took on your cell phone that are half dark and crooked and blurry, and you don't have any floor plans, and the place looks a wreck because you haven't properly staged it or prepped it for the market, then all you're doing is not creating a good portfolio for yourself moving forward. So your first listing is your opportunity to shine. So you want to make sure that you're doing that. So again, you will call, I have recommendations. Any agent who's been in business has recommendations for you for all of these things, but there's some great companies. I use skyblue.media, SKYBLUE.media. That's the website address. And you can use them for photos and floor plans. It's kind of a one-stop shop to schedule that, and they'll just come out and do that for you. For the first time that you have a listing, you want to be with them. Go with them, be there while they're doing it. You want to be running around, and you want to be making sure that the trash cans aren't sitting out in the picture, and they're not crooked towels on the towel racks in the bathrooms and things like that. Like, you're running around and making sure that this house is really pretty. And sometimes I'm throwing crap from one room into another room while he's shooting that room, right? And then you can put it all together by the time it goes on the market. But for the photos, you want the photos to look really good. Yes, somebody mentioned earlier prepping the home. And again, I don't want to go down a whole path for this, because this again can be a whole separate class on just prepping a home for sale. Happy to talk about it anytime. But you're going to walk through the property with your client. You're going to make recommendations on whether they need to paint, what updates they need made, that kind of stuff. That's really good experience to get with somebody else who might be going to a property that maybe they already have a listing agreement for, but now they're going in and they're starting the prep work. So you can go shadow them and to see what they're doing. So you have this great property, it's going on the market. You've done your basics for getting it on the market, getting in the MLS. You hit that list button and you go live. At this point, you want to make sure, let me back up a little bit. What did I say earlier? Next to finding business, what's the most important thing you're going to be doing for all of your real estate transactions? Setting what?
Setting the standard.
Setting expectations. Yes, setting standard is definitely true, but setting the expectations of the client. So once you have that signed listing agreement, and once you have the, you have a plan, you've talked about a little bit of a plan with your clients. Now you want to make sure that you are sitting down with them you don't have to sit down with them. You are sitting down at your computer and you are developing a timeline for them that you are sending out. And that is going to say, hey, we discussed having it painted by this date. We discussed all your stuff being out by this date, or you getting downsized, or whatever it is that they're doing. You're going to map it all out for them. You're going to put it all into into an email to them, which is really what I suggest you do. You are going to make sure that you outline every part of the process up until the date it goes live, and including your open houses. So send them an email that says all that stuff. And that way, again, it's a little bit of a CYA. right? Because you're covering your tracks. It acts as a checklist for yourself. You can just go ahead and print that out and put it in the file or keep it in front of you so that you know what schedule you've told them that you're sticking to. And then if along the way something needs to change, you need to tell them that. You need to have a very honest conversation. One of the things, well, let me ask. So say you have a listing, you've done all the photos, you've done everything, right? And let's just say it's January. And you're supposed to go on the market January 13th. Pretend it's a Friday. January 13th comes along. No, not Friday the 13th. I'm not trying to turn this into a bad luck day. But January 13th comes along and you see a weather report for the weekend and a big blizzard's coming through. Do you think that you might want to delay going on the market?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I-
And
I
what
would
kind of
think so.
conversation? I'm sorry? Yeah.
I said I would
Exactly.
think so, yes.
Yeah. It's not doing anybody any favors. The house is going to be covered in snow. People are going to be tracking wet through it. And chances are, even if it may cause people to not come at all. So now you're just having days on market. So pay attention to things like weather events. Pay attention to things like holidays. So you probably don't want to go on the market like Christmas weekend or Thanksgiving weekend. You may, that's not to say there will be people out there who'll be like, anytime's a good time to go on the market. But, to get the biggest bang for your buck, also consider what your own schedule is. If you have plans with your family that weekend, then you may want to say, hey, you know what? That's Thanksgiving weekend. What do you say we wait another weekend? Because I think you'll get better traffic through the property. So you want to make sure you're setting all those expectations from the beginning. So once you go on the market, you're going on the market, you want to make sure that you are caring for the property. So if it's a vacant property, you want to have some sort of plan in place, whether it's with the seller going back. It's not your responsibility to go check on the property every day or every other day or every week. But if your seller doesn't live in the area and you're the only one with a key, then you probably should put it into your schedule to go check on that property every few days to make sure everything's good. If the seller is local or if they're still in the house, then obviously you don't have to worry about checking on the property. But if they are, if they've moved out already, but they're still local, you may just want to be like, okay, I advise you to go swing by the property once or twice a week just to make sure everything's good. Reiterating that you'll also be keeping an eye on things. You're going to be checking in with agents that are showing the property. But you want to make sure that they don't think that you are 100% responsible for making sure that a tree didn't fall on their house overnight in a windstorm. So it is still their responsibility. It's still their home. So they still have to take care of it.
I have a question.
Yes.
When does the number of days in the market start counting? Is this from the day of you publish on the MLS, or
Nope.
when is this date coming?
The days on market start the time you go active.
What do you
So
mean by active?
So in the MLS, you have various statuses. So one status is coming soon, so you can put it in the MLS and list it as a coming soon property. The days on market do not accrue during coming soon. From coming soon, it goes to active. From active, it goes to any number of things. It can go either active under contract, under contingent. It can go temporary off, which you would only do if there's a repair or something that needs made, or maybe the seller still lives in the house. And talking about holidays, they're having family come in for the weekend and they want you to pull the house off the market for 4 days while their family's in.
So basically, when I make it active in the MLS, then the count starts.
Yep, until the status changes again when it
Okay.
stops.
I got it.
And,
Thank you so much.
and Jamie, I have a follow-up question on coming soon. How long the property can be on coming soon status?
Well, it used to be 3 weeks, but they've changed it to like indefinitely. So, but you cannot show it during coming soon status. So you don't want it to be indefinite. You also don't want people to, I try not to put a coming soon on the market more than 3 weeks out. It's really 2 to 3 weeks is when I do it. And when it's in coming soon status, I typically don't have pictures, right? I don't have pro photos. So I may take a nice picture of the exterior of the front and maybe the exterior of the back. And just put those in as the placeholders. And then once you get your pro photos, you can put them in. Once you have your pro photos, your floor plans, chances are you're ready to go. So I assume that you're going to be able to upload those on a Wednesday and go on the market either Thursday or Friday. And
Are
that is
there-
kind of a good rule of thumb. I'm sorry.
Now, I was going to ask, what are the impacts of having the property being non-active into coming soon status versus active status? Are there financial impact? Are there fees? Are there reputational impact to the agent and any of that stuff? Or are there any rule of thumb that successful agents follow?
Coming soon versus active?
Correct.
No, I mean, let's put it this way. You don't want to be the agent that puts a coming soon on the market 3 months out. I mean, you're going to lose your audience. By the time that thing hits a market, they've seen it so many times that they don't care anymore. So you have to keep in mind that you want to whet people's appetite for something that's going to be hitting the market, but you don't want to like have them stop paying attention to it because every time they open up their feed, it's got the same damn house in it that's not hitting the market anytime soon. Does that make sense?
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. So, I mean, beyond that, no, you're not allowed to show the home during coming soon. So if you're planning on having, I don't know, if you are like trying to get somebody in to see that property, like an investor, I don't know, somebody to see that house before it hits the market, you cannot do that during coming soon status. So once it is coming soon, nobody's looking at the house during coming soon. And then once it goes active, people can look at the property. So that's the other reason why you don't want to have it off forever. You can put it into temporary off, I believe, from coming soon, but I think once you switch out of temporary off that you would have to go back to that you have to go straight to active. So coming soon is very restrictive as far as like jumping around statuses from there. Let me open this a little bit. So the other thing that so once you get in the MLS, the good plan of action, I have a plan that's worked for years. I've been doing this for 13 years. Everybody's going to do things a little bit differently, but my advice is go on the market either a Thursday or a Friday, usually like Thursday evening. Go on and then start showings Friday. Schedule your open house. If you want to do 2 open houses, if you want to do 3 open houses, that's fine. You want to do a Friday, Saturday, Sunday open house, that's fine. But schedule your open houses for that weekend. And be doing a lot of pre-marketing before you go on the market. So once you go on the market, that calendar starts ticking, right? Those days start ticking off. And that's not when you start your marketing. You already have the listing. You should be starting that marketing as soon as you get the listing signed. So you should be getting the word out that something's coming soon, that kind of stuff. What you don't want to do is be like, surprise, this just came on the market, and expect a lot of activity that same minute. Buyers are being slower, a little fussier. That's just how things are going right now. So you want to give them some time to like mull over a property before you just pop it out there and hope for the best. And the reason I say all that, there's a statistic that holds true 99.9% of the time. Although it's funny because I'm going through one right now, which has been on the market. I have a 1-bedroom condo that's on the market, which 1-bedroom condos are suffering really bad right now. They have been for the past year. And my 1-bedroom condo has been sitting on the market for like going on 4 months. Not normal. If it was a 2-bedroom condo, it'd be a totally different story. Anyhow, the rule of thumb I was going to tell you is for every 10 showings you have, this is not, don't count your open house people. Those are not necessarily real buyers. But for every 10 legitimate qualified buyers that look at a property, you should have 1 offer. If you do not have 1 offer after 10, let's say 10, 11, then you need to re-examine either the price or the condition of the property because something is not in line. And you need to have been getting feedback from all the agents who've shown the property. You need to reach out to them, call them, say, hey, you showed 123 Main Street. Can you tell me what you thought about it, what your buyer thought about it? And ask them for feedback. And sometimes that feedback is just they liked another property more. And sometimes you really can't do anything with that, you know. But if you're getting routine feedback that the carpets are filthy or it's overpriced or, you know, and it's always going to be in line, right? So the condition and the price are always going to be like this. So if people are telling you that the condition is bad and the price is high, that's a problem. If the condition is bad, that's fine. I mean, it's better to have it in good condition, but if there's no option to get it in good condition, then you need to lower the price. And you will eventually find the low price area where the condition doesn't matter anymore. So bad condition, lower price, good condition, higher price. So that use your 10 showings as your litmus test. Now, the other thing you should be doing is every week you should be giving your sellers a report every week. And whether that report is we had no showings, that's fine. But your report should also include things like this is the activity that has happened recently. These are the sales that have happened around your property. So I should have let me pull something up really quick. And I will find you an example of something I send to my, so this is after, and I'm just going to drop it in the notes here or in the, let's see, go in the, chat. All right. So this is an example, and this is actually specific to what I just sent to my, oh, for crying out loud. Sorry. I have to send it to you in 2 parts because it doesn't like that it had too many words. Okay. So, really, you're killing me. All right. All right, so this is part 1. This is part 2 of a email I sent to my client. And this is for the property that I was just talking about that's been on the market forever. We've done multiple price reductions, whatever. So I just give him a little update of what's going on. I give him an update. I tell him, I show him what else has sold recently, or if nothing has sold, I show him that. But that's all in there. You can copy and paste this and use this as kind of like a little bit of a guide for what you tell them. Now, I also talked about rentals because we did talk about flipping this property to a rental if it didn't sell, but he decided to keep it on the market as a sale property. But, you know, you should have a weekly report that goes out, and it's not just we didn't sell it, we didn't get any offers. I mean, I think they can figure that out. You need to tell them what kind of activity you've had in the property. You need to tell them what the feedback has been. You need to tell them what's going on elsewhere in the market around that property. Is other things selling? And if so, why isn't that property selling? So you need to set an expectation that every week they're going to get feedback about the sale of the property. So now let's hope that that's not the case and you're not on the market for a real long time. And let's talk about getting an offer. So you receive an offer from an agent, and an offer is not an offer unless it is written. There's investors who will call and be like, well, I want to make a $500,000 offer, blah, blah, blah. And I don't consider offers that are not written on paper. So put it on paper and send it in to me, or else it's not real. Once you get a real offer, and if you get more than one real offer, you can also do something about that too. So if you get more than one offer, let me show you a spreadsheet that I do. And it's called an offer grid. And I use it when I have multiple offers on a property. And I will pull up, sorry, let's see. Okay, and I have on this one, I had multiple offers. And, oh, come on, why are you being? I think that this is going to be difficult for me right now. Why are you being difficult? Here we go. There we go. All right. So this is, let me share here. This is a multiple offer grid that I put together. It's a spreadsheet of side-by-side offers. Let me make this a little bit bigger for you. Okay, can you see this? Can everybody see the
Yeah.
spreadsheet that's up?
Yeah.
So this is, we received, I actually think we received 7 offers on this property. You are not going to just send your client 7 offers and tell them to figure it out. Your job is to help them figure out what's going on with these offers. So this is a side-by-side offer summary of all the offers, and it's apples to apples. So what I went through is offer price, all the things, right? Closing cross credit, all these, it's everything on the offer, and it's side by side. And I give it to her, but I also go through before I send it, and I come up with what the net sales price is going to be minus their payoff amount. So this is net, not inclusive of payoff, just based on the offer itself. And then we look at the best offers. So that one netted 585. And we, lowest offer, we can throw these out. So we kind of look at what we can throw away. You may have to go back and renegotiate with people. You may have a bunch of offers that are all very similar. I don't want to just give her 5 offers that are all the same net. What's the point? So my job is to go back and try to negotiate a better offer from one of these people. So I would go back, and I did go back to the highest offers, the few highest offers, and give them an opportunity to up their offers. So offers 4, 5, 6, and 7, I went back to them and I gave them an opportunity to come back with better and higher offers. Some things, like this is a hard money loan. Again, we don't need to get into the specifics of contracts right now. When that happens for you, that's a good time to sit down with your coach to go through them. But not every offer, like this was a cash offer with no contingencies, but she was going to net 546. This was a non-cash offer with a couple of contingencies, not many. It was going to net her a whole lot more. So my job was to make sure that this offer was going to close. If this was going to net her the most money, we needed to figure out how we were going to make that close. That was my job. It closed. We all lived happily ever after. But the point of the matter is, you don't just get a contract and say, woo, we got a contract, and send it off to your client. You need to decipher that contract for them. And if you only receive one contract, you're basically going to send, and it can, in this case, it can just go on an email. It doesn't have to go on a spreadsheet, but you're basically going to do this summary. You're going to do, this summary for them in an email that tells them what it is in that offer. And you're going to run them a net sheet, an estimated net sheet based on their payoff and all the money in, including your commissions and everything, to tell them how much they're going to walk away with on that sale so that they can make an informed decision. You are not doing your job if you're just handing them a contract and making them figure it out themselves. That's not what you're getting paid for. So, so that's one thing that you need to be doing, or have a plan to do when you get an offer. Review that contract, decipher it for them, help them make a decision. Recently, I just went under contract with a client who's an older client. Her husband's in memory care. She is doing this on her own. She's an older woman, and it's very scary for her. Now, we got one offer on the property, which was fine. It was a full-priced offer. But I had to walk her through the contract. Like, I had to make her feel comfortable with everything. I had to explain the pros and cons. So not just what the contract came in at, but like, what might another contract look like? you know, what might alternatives be to this? Where might there be options for us to make counter offers? Until she was very secure with what we decided to do, and then we were able to ratify that contract. So make sure you're representing your client as well as you can when it comes to negotiating those offers, because that's really where you're, you know, what you're getting paid for at this point, right? The other thing that you want to make sure that you're doing is, now you've got a ratified contract. Now your job is to set another expectation. So once you get a ratified contract, you're going to do something. I have one pulled up, although this isn't necessarily, oh, hold on, let me pull it back up again. This is I had one pulled up and then I changed it. Hold on. This is for a buyer that was going under contract for one of my coaching people. I gave him a template to use. It's the same template. It's just going to have a slightly different bend to it. So this is, okay. So let me share this. So you're going to send can you see that? Can you see this email? So you're going to send a template to your clients. And again, this is something you're going to use for your own notification as well. And it's going to say something in the effect of, I mean, this is my template. I'm happy to copy and paste it into the thing for you. But it's basically going to reference the address of the property, because they might not remember it. Like when they're referring back to things, they're not going to remember the address because they don't live there yet. So make sure you have it all in one spot. Their names, congratulations, the contract ratification date. Does everybody know what the contract ratification date means? Can anybody tell me what the contract ratification date is?
Well, the contract was signed by both parties.
Correct. When both parties have agreed to the terms of the contract, and there's also a spot on there that you'll add ratification date. That is the ratification date. All dates count forward from there, so you don't count that as date one. Ratification day, if ratification day is on January 1st, day one starts on the 2nd. So you start counting your days the next day. And then according to the terms of your contracts, you have to look and see what you've written down. So that's why this is a template. I can't tell you what the answer is. You're going to say your earnest money deposit is due on X date. It's usually 3 to 5 days from the time that you ratified, however you've written your contract, how much that's for, to what title company it's going to go to, and or if you have the title company, some title companies use electronic app where they can deposit the funds electronically. So you can give them a little bit more information here that says, you know, your title company will reach out to you with an app to make that remote deposit instead of writing a check. But nonetheless, you want to let them know when that's due. You want to let them know when their homeowner's insurance is due. If you're in the state of Virginia, can anybody tell me when they must make application for homeowner's insurance according to the contract? Does anybody know this answer? The answer is 5 days. That is, they must make application. They don't have to get the home insurance yet, but they have to make application. Does anybody have a reason of why there would be a deadline date? And I know Maryland has one too. I just don't know no, I'm assuming it's probably 5 days too. Can anybody tell me why that might be a requirement of the contract?
Because the seller has to decide when to stop their own home insurance. No?
No, thank you for that answer, but that's not why. And let me back up and say, this is kind of aimed at the buyer. So the buyer is making an application for homeowners insurance. The seller doesn't need to, because the seller already has homeowners insurance.
Oh, because the buyer's lender requires that?
Well, that's one reason, but they wouldn't need it in 5 days. So the 5 days covers it's a contingency in the contract. that covers the buyer should the property be uninsurable. Why might a property be uninsurable? I mean, just take a guess. Any ideas?
Maybe if
would
there's a
just-
lien on a property or something.
No, that's a good guess though. That would be more of a title issue though.
Okay, gotcha.
For homeowners insurance, maybe there was a fire in the property and the insurance company doesn't want to insure it for some reason. And they have something called a clue report that they can get on the back end. This is not something that you're getting, or you don't get access to it. But when the insurance companies run a property through their system, they get information called a clue report. And that clue report tells them information about how many claims have been made on that property. Maybe that property is in a really high flood zone. Maybe that property is in a condominium that has been deemed to have structural issues. There's a number of reasons. They're not common. Like, I'm not going to say this is something you're going to run into, but I will tell you what, if your client has no other contingencies in a contract and you do not make them do this within the 5 days time period, and for some reason their property is not insurable, then that's on you. Like, you did not keep them aware of that. So you need to make sure that you are keeping them on their timeline for accomplishing the things they want to do. Homeowners, the HOA documents. Now, this is where your seller comes in. So even though this timeline is written for a buyer, because there's just more stuff on it, that's why it's good to have it here. The seller needs to order the resale package. You should actually do that prior to going on the market. You should try to do that 2 weeks prior to going on the market if there is a condo or a HOA, because the HOA or condo has 14 days to deliver that package. And you want to have that package in hand for the seller, or sorry, for the buyer, whoever the buyer is. Now, likewise, that buyer will have a few days to review that contract and void the contract for any reason, those documents. You need to let your client know, as the seller, you need to let them know what the home inspection deadline is on the contract. So when does this buyer need to be scheduling the home inspection? The seller needs to be out of the house for the home inspection. So you want to make sure you're communicating with them that if they have something going on that they can't leave the house for all day, then you want to communicate that with your buyer, with the buyer's agent, to make sure that they're not, scheduling something that your client can't leave the house for. So you just want to make sure they know of when to be aware of all these things. Also, if there's an inspection coming up and your client knows, the seller knows, that they have some sort of challenge in the property. Maybe they needed to caulk around the bathtub, or, they know that something's going to pop up in an inspection report and they wanted to get that, fix that really quick, or even if it's just changing light bulbs in an overhead garage door, because, when light bulbs don't work in certain areas, it goes, the home inspector assumes that the fixture is broken, not that the light bulb is dead. So, making sure all the light bulbs work, that kind of stuff. So you want to make sure that you're setting the expectation with your client. You're telling them when the home inspection is going to be in to take care of any looming issues that they may not have taken care of before you went on the market. That's not to say they should start doing any major repairs. At that point, you also want to say, I'm sorry, I have a tickle. Once a property goes under contract, you don't want them to be doing anything to the property that's not minor, like changing light bulbs. You want them, because as of the date that property went under contract, that is the expectation that the buyer has of the property. And I have seen clients, I have actually seen sellers that want to make changes to the property after it goes under contract. And I'm like, nope, don't touch that. I don't care. I don't care that you don't like it. I don't care that you wanted to fix it. I don't care anything. Leave it exactly as it is. Because they could make a larger problem for themselves before. You don't want them doing that. Chances are the buyer's already seen it and aware of it, so just let it be. If there's going to be a radon test done, you need to let your client know, because for 2 days, they can't mess with the like leaving all the doors and windows open in the house or anything like that. They need to be able to, they can go in and out of the house, but they can't like they have to adhere to the testing standards of the radon test. If there's a pest inspection that's going to be done, you're going to need to let the client know about that. You need to understand what a pest inspection is. So a pest inspection generally, almost always, is on the onus of the seller. So if there's a pest inspection in the contract, the way the contract is written, the seller is responsible for any problems found with that pest inspection. And that's wood destroying insects. So if there's termites or something that shows up in the termite report, then they're going to have to deal with that. So again, you need to set that expectation. You need to let them know when that's going to happen. The next things are, you need to let them know about the appraisal due date and the loan commitment due date. So the seller will have to grant access to the appraiser to look at the property for the appraisal. The appraisal will reach out to you as a listing agent ahead of time to say, hey, I want to be there tomorrow or the next day or whatever. They'll schedule the appointment with you. And then you just check with your seller and make sure that they're aware of when that date is going to be. But you do not want to like blindside people with that, because they also want to make sure that the house, okay, let me back up and say, for the appraisal, if it can be helped, if it's an option, you kind of want the house to be easy to maneuver. In other words, like you want to make sure that there's no boxes piled up in front of panels, electrical panels. Same thing with the home inspection. You want to make sure that the home inspector and the appraiser can access things like the attic access, any crawl space access, electrical panels, hot water heaters, HVAC systems. You don't want 1,400 boxes piled in front of that stuff. I mean, I've literally gone places where there's like, 400 pounds of furniture sitting in front of a door that we need access to. So you want to make sure that and that creates a problem because now everybody's got to come back and do something. So make sure that your client is aware of that and they don't have stuff blocking those areas so that those people can do their what they need to do. I'll get back to appraisal in 1 second. The other thing you want to talk to them about is when they need to turn over their utilities. So the buyer is going to have to set their utility turnover to start as of the day of settlement. My advice is that you instruct your sellers to schedule their utilities to turn off the day after settlement. That sounds weird. It's not because they're going to be paying an extra day for the buyer. I mean, if they do, who cares? It's going to be like $5. It's because sometimes, depending when settlement is, the utility company can't get out there. And you don't want the buyer to not have utilities for a day. Like, that's not cool. You don't want them to be doing the walkthrough of the property on the day of settlement and find out that there's no electric. So always have the seller schedule for a day or two after settlement to have their utilities disconnected. Their billing ended, I should say, not disconnected. And there's an important distinction. The buyer should be calling the utilities to start service as of the day of settlement. So let's just say their start date is the 15th. Their settlement day is the 15th. Their start day is the 15th. But the 15th is a Friday and there's a holiday on Monday or something like that. Like, you need to pay attention to the calendar. Tell your clients not to schedule their billing to end until the Tuesday after a holiday. Because if something happens and the electric company doesn't get out there on the day of, or they have to go do something that it's hard for them to switch billing without going out to the property, you just don't want the buyer to have to go through a whole weekend without utilities. So everybody will be happy in the end that happened. Once the utilities kick in for the buyer, it automatically stops the billing to the seller. So it's not like they're going to be overlapping. And then you want to make sure your client knows when the settlement date is going to be. The settlement date, the buyer's agent is going to do a walkthrough with the buyer a day or two, either the day of or a day or two before settlement, to check out the condition of the property. So you want to make sure that your client is ready for that, that your seller knows that either they have all their stuff out by then, unless there's some sort of post-settlement occupancy agreement in place, but their stuff should be all moved out and it should be clean and ready to go. The contract does not call for professional cleaning. My best practice advice for you is that that's an expectation you should set at the listing appointment. You should tell them in your list of things that you're doing, that you're having done, I'm not saying you're paying for it, but it's going to be done to the property, is it's going to be cleaned either prior to staging or right before it goes on the market. It's going to be professionally cleaned. If nobody's living there. Professionally cleaned. Move out cleaning. Appliances will be cleaned. Everything will be ready to go. You will have another cleaning. This will be just a mild cleaning done after staging's come out, after everybody's tromped through the property 400 times, and right before settlement. Because let me just tell you from a bulletproofing your things issue, it is worth it to not have something blow up because something is dirty. You don't want to be in situations where something that could be easily mitigated becomes an issue the day of settlement. You, as the listing agent, should also be walking through that property right before the buyer does their walkthrough and making sure that there's nothing that's weird, because you need to take care of that if it is. And whether you're working with your seller to do that or whether you're just doing it yourself. I mean, heaven knows I've been there with a vacuum cleaner or been there doing something. I'm not saying to clean the whole house top to bottom, but sometimes you walk in and like people tracked in leaves or stuff like that, and you're sweeping stuff out, or you're just, you know, I've often walked into garages that have a bunch of old paint. Buyers don't want the old paint, and they will make a stink about it. They will make somebody get rid of the old paint before they go to settlement. Well, just get rid of the old paint. And just as an FYI, old paint needs to be taken to the dump and be taken to the hazardous waste dump. You cannot just throw it in your trash. Do not do that. It's a problem for 100 different reasons. Besides the fact that you can get fined. But stuff like that is stuff you want to make sure that the property is ready to convey to the next person. So the other thing you're going to be telling your client is that whatever title company that they're working with is probably going to be reaching out to whatever the title company the buyer's working with. You need to let them know that buyer chose ABC Title, and that ABC Title is going to be reaching out to your client for their information to sell the property. And there's going to be forms and whatnot that they're going to have to fill out. If they're uncomfortable giving any of that information, they can call them directly. You want to warn them about wire fraud. There's a lot of expectation setting. I cannot stress enough to you how important it is for you to be educating your clients. They're going through the most stressful thing they have ever gone through, and that is selling a property and moving. Buying a property is equally as stressful, and moving. And you cannot assume that they're not going to get flustered and just do stupid things. They can be smart people, and smart people make stupid decisions all the time. So you need to warn them about wire fraud. You need to make sure that they're not answering random emails to go send their money off to random places. You need to make sure that they know that as a seller, they can do settlement early. So they can actually sign ahead of time, a couple days, up to a week, if the title company is ready for them. They don't have to wait until the day of settlement. So if they're planning on being somewhere else, that's fine. You need to know how they're going to go to settlement. Are they going to be there in person? Do they need to do a remote settlement? Do they have to have some sort of power of attorney? You need to know all these things, and you need to make sure that they are prepped and aware of that before they get to settlement. Lastly, you need to make sure that they bring their photo ID, a checkbook, and that's only to make sure that the bank can reconfirm wire instructions, or the title company, sorry. And any leftover keys or any of that kind of stuff, make sure you have keys, garage door openers, that they're either still at the house or that they're at the title company being able to be turned over to the buyer. Any codes, any things that have to do with like electronic keypads, You want to make sure you're giving them the codes for that and the information to reset those electronic keypads once they purchase the property. You are under no circumstance allowed to give those keys to your buyers ahead of time. You are not allowed to give them anything until they have signed the paperwork and turned over their money to the title company. So when you go do a final walkthrough of the property and you take the key from the lockbox, because that's what you'll do, you'll keep the key from the lockbox for the final walkthrough. You'll have had a conversation with the listing agent about keys and other things. And you hang on to that key until settlement. And at settlement is when you give them that key. If there is a mailbox key, make sure that the mailbox key is there. Does anybody know about mailbox keys? If it's a condo, do you know how you have to get a new mailbox key? Anybody had to go through this experience before?
No, actually, I was a buyer's agent, and the listing agent, the day before the settlement date, asked me to keep the key so I can actually hand it to the buyer on the settlement date.
Good.
But
Well,
do you
that's-
have to fill out some kind of form with the condo association to get a copy of that key?
No, the mailbox key is owned by the post office. So if
Gotcha.
you do not get a mailbox key, they have to go to the post office servicing that particular area and order a mailbox key. It is a huge pain in the butt. You want to make sure you get any mailbox key. Do not let that leave. Do not let that go to Texas with the seller or wherever they're going. And this is your job ahead of time to be checking and making sure that all those things are going to be left at the house and where they're going to be left. Garage door openers too. That's kind of it. I tried to cover all those things in an hour. Is there any questions that you have? Oh, let me just finish up. So make sure prior to settlement that you schedule to have your sign removed from the property. Any of your staging should have been removed from the property. And also don't forget to remove your lockbox from the property once the buyer's agent has taken the key out of it. Do not be the person that leaves your lockbox on the property for 3 weeks while somebody's chasing you down to remove it. Because that happens more often than you would think. So that's that kind of stuff. And then you would go into the MLS and you're going to change the status to sold and you're going to do your happy dance all the way to settlement and getting your check. Does anybody have any questions about any of that stuff? And can anybody give me a takeaway? What's your takeaway from all that?
It's a wonderful session. We got a lot of information, and we assumed a lot of things to do as an agent. It's not an easy job.
It is not an easy job. Please do not think that it is your job to do everything. It is not. You cannot leave that as the responsibility of other people. Your clients don't know what they're doing. They really don't. And you need to make sure that you are serving their needs properly. And you need to make sure that you're doing the best job you can to make sure that they go into everything expecting what they should be expecting. And I will tell you that really will save your butt more often than not. Even when things go wrong, if you're able to go back to them and say, hey, remember when we talked about this may be a hiccup area? They're like, oh yeah, I totally remember that. And it's much less traumatic for them. Like it is so much easier for them to not feel like they don't know what's happening. And, giving them what can go wrong also is part of setting expectations. There's nothing wrong with saying, not everything goes perfectly. So I'm going to do my best to make sure everything goes really well. But if it doesn't, just know that these are the areas where it could potentially break down. Here's that. I had to do this in 2 parts too. So if you want to copy and paste that stuff, go ahead and do that. It's also going to show up in the recording and hopefully maybe in the AI companion. So the other things Any other questions that you have or any other takeaways that you want to share?
I do have another question, Jamie, if you don't mind, about
Yeah.
do you recommend or what is the rule of thumbs when you do the listing in BetMLS? Do you think it's a good idea to put offers due by, or since it's on seller's market anymore, we don't do that?
So the only time I've ever done that, even when it was a seller's market, and hold on, my light is really goofy in here. There we go. That may or may not have worked. All right. The only time that you put an offer deadline is if you actually have an offer or you know you're getting offers. Don't jinx yourself. Nothing makes me chuckle more than when, and not only that, people put offer deadlines in, and then 3 weeks later, I'm looking at the MLS and it's still active and an offer deadline was 3 weeks ago. So not only did they put an offer deadline in without any offers, but they didn't go change it. So if you do have multiple offers or you have even one offer in hand and you get it right away, then go ahead and set an expectation with everybody, or, talk to your client. If your client wants to accept it right away, that's fine. But say, hey, let's give it another 24 hours. I can reach out to everybody who's shown it and let them know that I'm setting an offer deadline of tomorrow at 6 p.m. or whatever it is. Get your seller to agree to that, then put that in the MLS and communicate that with everybody who has seen the property.
Thank you.
You're welcome. That was a good question. Any other questions that you guys can think of?
Actually, for some reason, I cannot copy the chat.
Oh,
Would you be able to share with us in an email both of the metrics and the?
I don't have, I got an idea. Everybody email me and I will respond with those things.
Great.
And if you ever have, there's my email address. And of course, if you have, oh, sorry, I put it in the wrong place. Jeez. If you ever have, if you are not licensed in Virginia and you ever have a referral for Virginia, feel free to send it my way. But it's very nice to have you all on the call today. I hope you learned a lot. I hope you're doing your daily touches. You're reaching out to people every day. You're following up with notes. You are putting them in your database and you are finding clients because that is the only way that you will be in business. So go forth and go sell some homes. And if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. But yeah, shoot me an email and I'll respond back with those things.